you mentioned a key word that I don't know if we all understand it because we've experienced it in a time fashion, and I'll say collaborate, or we like to collaborate here at Valencia. And what that means usually is decisions start to flow down. We have conversation, we feel ownership. You mentioned in crisis, sometimes you didn't say it like this, but what I heard was the collaboration may shrink. It doesn't go away. And now you're saying we're going to go back to it. And so I'll ask you the question is we get through summer, we've established we're going to be online and present. How are we going to collaborate our way through to know what fall looks like? What's
Mm.
your current best view? Because people are already trying to solve that. And
Yeah.
I have tended to tell them, let's kind of stay a little while longer in summer, even though, yes, fall preparation may be coming in the next 4 to 7 days. So how do you answer that? Because I want to know, am I coming back? I've got elderly person or I'm compromised. What will you do to ensure our safety,
Mm.
security, and supporting students, faculty, staff?
Yep. Good
It's
questions.
overwhelming.
Yeah, and every enterprise in the country is in the world is trying to sort that out. How safe is safe, and how do you know it's safe, and safe for whom, and safe when, and so on. So that is a collaborative conversation, and we've already distributed and got wonderful response to a Qualtrics survey of over 300 of the faculty and staff responded with their notions about what would signal safety to you, what tells you it's okay to return to face-to-face environments, and what do those environments need to look like for you to feel safe. So we've collected a lot of information on that. So that internal information is really helpful to us. There's also a lot of external information to process. And as you know, there are all sorts of sources for that information, some more reliable than others. My favorite sources are ones that are outside of government and politics and are in the science end of things. So you know that I serve on the board of Orlando Health and have for 18 years. I have deep relationships with all of the leadership and many of the docs there, and I'm using them pretty heavily to
Okay.
inform me on where are we with regard to the infection rates, what is safe, what practices really are safe and what aren't, how useful are things like gloves and masks and temperature
Okay.
checks and all those sorts of things. So we're gathering that kind of information, and we may actually formalize a relationship with medical experts like that to help us through the next year. And I think we have at least a year of this kind of work to do at one level or another. It's not going to be like flipping a switch or blowing the whistle at the swimming pool and saying everybody back in the pool. It's going to be graded, phased adjustments that we make as things become safe and plausible. And as the demand from students tells us what makes them feel safe as
Hmm.
well. So there's a lot of work to do on that. Here's what I know so far.
Okay.
Um, we are on remote, working at least through July 31st.
All right.
Summer is in the can. We know what it's going to be.
All right.
I'm contemplating and asking for feedback, mostly from student affairs, about moving the deadline for fall registration a little later,
Okay.
two,
Why?
2 or 3 weeks, to give us time to revisit the fall schedule and all of our processes in a less hurried manner. So, you know, urgency is the enemy of collaboration sometimes. So, in order to create the opportunity to collaborate, we need more time. So, I'm asking them to consider pushing those dates back to give us a few more weeks to figure out what does the transition from summer into fall look like? What should the fall schedule look like? Within that collaborative framework, we've also established two new work teams.
Okay. Tell
Uh,
me about it.
so, one is a design team whose purpose is to figure out what guidance do we give to deans and discipline coordinators and others in the college about the fall schedule, and what kind of innovation do we want to encourage. So, there are lots of possibilities there. People are really interested in synchronous uh, courses at a distance, so online synchronous. People are interested in different lengths of term. People are interested in block scheduling so that you have fewer contacts but for longer during the day. So moving from hiding from everybody to limiting the population exposure by limiting the number of people you see in a given day. There's lots of interest in expanding hybrid, so you have fewer contacts with that student in a week but you get some face to face. There's interest in figuring out what comes on campus early
Mm-hmm.
because face to face is required and we can make it safe versus what comes on campus much, much later. And at any rate, I think we're likely to see just in demand a shift from about 1 in 3 classes being online historically in the last few years to perhaps 1 in 2. Whether that happens in the fall or the spring, I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
We will be consulting and transparent about all this through the summer. I think we'll build a schedule because we have to in the next few weeks. I urge flexibility, and the flexibility we need is in case there's a second wave, which there will be. It's not, there's no scenario I can read about in the science of this that suggests there won't be a second wave. There's like a 75% chance of it. Now, it's going to be a lot less severe than the first wave if we handle this correctly, and won't require exactly the same management.
Okay.
But there's likely to be one, and it's likely to peak in November.
Okay.
That assumes that we do all the right things now as a community, and it should be very manageable. But we need to be ready to change modality, change schedule, change the way we work pretty quickly if those projections aren't correct. So we're going to have to continue to be nimble and responsive. Last thing I'll say about all that is that the fall will require us to be sensitive to individual challenges as well.
Okay.
The faculty have been amazing in adjusting to the unique stories and challenges of their students. We'll have to do the same thing with our staff and faculty. So some are going to feel very comfortable and be very low risk and know how to handle themselves and be able to go right back into the workplace. Others are going to be vulnerable or have close family members who are vulnerable, and we're going to have to learn how to accommodate that. Some are just going to be fearful until they see some time pass that makes them comfortable. All that's still going to have to be managed. We're going to have to manage that in part by surrendering, Stanton, a habit we have in academia.
All right, tell me about this habit.
So the habit is if we ever do something, it sets a precedent, and we're going to have to do it from now on.
True.
And we just can't think that way. We're responding to a dynamic situation. We're going to try things. We're going to do things out of necessity. We're going to innovate in some ways, and we're going to have to step back and evaluate them and say, okay, how does that work going forward? Because it may not work going forward. It may not be the preferred way to do things. We'll do that together. That's the beauty of collaborative design, is that you engage the conversation, not the politics. You engage the decision, not the fears.